It is part one of the Week 12 preview here on the Audible. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, and Thursday night might be more interesting than they've been in a while. Buffalo and Houston, and let's start on the Buffalo side. Josh Allen going to have another 6 touchdowns? And if
Right.
not, where are those touchdowns going to go against a Houston team that's trying to hold on?
Yeah, that's the thing. We've seen Buffalo go through some ups and downs, right? They really dominated Kansas City, then got dominated by Miami, huh? And then Josh Allen did his Superman thing last week. However, we did see the running game for Tampa do well. Buffalo's run defense has been vulnerable, and Houston's defense is really good. And Houston is a cornered animal. They've been winning games, eking out wins with Davis Mills, and it is going to be Davis Mills again. But I do think you're going to see Buffalo more conservative in this one. I think you're going to see more James Cook establishing the run. And then otherwise, I don't expect we're going to see Dalton Kincaid. And they had one of those fantasy football bane of existence wide receiver rotations last week. I know Tyrell Shavers had a good game, but I don't think you can count on any of these wide receivers. Cease, I don't even know if we're going to know exactly who's going to be active until the inactives are announced. With guys like Elijah Moore and Keon Coleman down last week, are they going to be up this week? So this is going to be fascinating because if they leave Josh Allen out there to be Superman, Donnell Hunter, Will Anderson, that Houston defense is very good. I don't know if the offense is going to be good though.
Yeah, I don't know about that. And on the Houston side of things, we're recording on Wednesday morning. What do we know about CJ Stroud?
Yeah,
That's really
out.
where it all begins, right there. Of like, okay, he's missed a couple of games now with a concussion.
Right.
Hopefully, he's on the mend and on the right track.
If it was a Sunday game, maybe we would be on CJ Stroud watch, but he's out for this week. So it's going to be another Davis Mills game. And if the Buffalo can open up a lead against a very tough Houston defense, so I don't know, then Davis Mills has some quarterback two super flex appeal. But I think other than Nico Collins, and we'll watch Jaden Higgins to see if he continues to come on, but other than Nico Collins and maybe Woody Marks, because again, you try to establish the run. You don't want to leave Davis Mills hanging out there to dry. Ideally sees for Houston, this is like a 13-10 kind of game. This is a game where their defense gets stops, holds Buffalo to field goals, and then their offense just has to maybe convert a turnover into points. Woody Marks did get some first and goal carries last week, so I think Woody Marks is the guy if you're going to go for someone from this backfield. But I think might be a lot more entertaining and interesting game to watch than one for fantasy football goodness.
Let's look at the goodness that may come from Pittsburgh and Chicago on Sunday. Do we have any international games? No.
No, they're
Hey,
done.
hey,
Although
everybody.
they're saying the Saints are going to play in Paris one year. Ho, 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 ho.
Ho ho ho, Fleur de Lis. Pittsburgh and Chicago, and Pittsburgh side now with some changes at the quarterback position. And I think I saw our chat room, was it yesterday in the waiver wire? It's like, could Mason Rudolph be really good for DK Metcalf? We're fixing to find out.
Yeah, he was good for George Pickens. Remember, it was Mason Rudolph that unlocked George Pickens. So maybe, but I do think this is kind of a Spider-Man meme game, as both of these teams want their defense to make plays. They want to make some special teams plays. They want to be conservative on offense, establish the run, and use the scheme to set up good situations for the quarterback. So we'll see if it's Mason Rudolph or Rodgers. I don't think it really matters because Rudolph was reasonably competent last week, and it's the Arthur Smith offense, so it's about execution, and he can do that at this point in his career. Jalen Warren's a high floor running back two flex. He did say that he was cleared to return last week, but then Mike Tomlin said what he was seeing from Kenneth Gainwell, he wanted to keep him in. I hope that's just a game script kind of thing and not some sign that now we're back into something closer to a 50-50 split. With DK Metcalf, I think you got to put him in as a wide receiver three flex. Notice, by the way, that Roman Wilson passed Calvin Austin to be the number two receiver. And then, of course, what I'm watching sees is Darnell Washington. Again,
Woo.
as a Steelers fan that was born in 75, I don't remember them winning the Super Bowls in the 70s, but I do remember Jerome Bettis returning to Detroit and winning the first Super Bowl that I remember. And there was something about Jerome Bettis and the way he played the game that would ignite the crowd, it would ignite the team. It was something important. And what Darnell Washington did last week, it was that same energy. So I really want to see, not just for fantasy, but as a Steelers fan, let's Let's keep him central in the passing game.
Keep him central and see what we can do here. Chicago Bears keep Caleb Williams handing off the ball to DeAndre Swift, and Kyle Monaghy, of course, in that ever popular what the heck flex position.
What's fascinating here is, and we've seen this, like Brian Flores, who we know loves to blitz. He didn't blitz Caleb Williams much. I think what you don't want to do is flush Caleb Williams from the pocket. I think you're better off, and the Steelers have done this well with Lamar Jackson, by the way, where you rush him and you speed up his process, but you don't create run lanes. You don't create lanes for the play to get extended. But if Chicago has their way, like you said, you establish a run with DeAndre Swift, and Kyle Monaghy ran really well at the goal line last week, ran over Josh Metellus, like really ran him over. So he's not going to lose that role. You're still going to keep Swift in there. You don't want to expect Chicago to dominate this game so that Monangai can get a big role. Caleb Williams, again, probably a low ceiling. I think this is another game, Cease, that projects as a 16-13, like what was it last week for the Bears, 19-17, like that kind of game. And then when you look over the passing game, you're spreading it out to now Luther Burden and Odunze and DJ Moore and Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet caught 5 passes last week. DeAndre Swift didn't even catch a pass last week, and he often is part of the passing game. So it's just really hard to pick out one bear to put in your lineup this week. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more. This should be more of a defensive, physical struggle game.
A physical struggle game sounds like the Steelers.
Yeah.
What is this game going to be? 45-3? New England Patriots, Cincinnati Bengals is up next. New England side, keep doing your thing. I guess we'll continue to watch the backfield to see what the injury report looks like. And how's that going to look when both Stevenson and Henderson are out there for this team? And Drake May continue to sling it against the Bengals. Should be pretty easy.
Right, Cease. This is a game that looks like for Drake May, probably just practice for Travion Henderson and Ramondre Stevenson. This week, I think if Stevenson's back, Stevenson's still at least a flex play. But Travion Henderson is an upside running back too, unless we hear some guidance from the team. And I think at worst, when I say for worst, I mean Henderson, it's going to be 50-50, but I won't be surprised if it's more like 60-40, even 70-30. But Stevenson, especially in the second half, can get some run, assuming they open up a lead. What about the passing game other than Drake May? I think you got to go with Mac Hollins. We'll see if Kayshon Boutte's back, but 3 of the last 4 weeks, Hollins has been serviceable to good for fantasy, and the touchdowns are going to come here. Obviously, Stephon Diggs. Otherwise, I'm not really sure who we have that we can go with, but we do know that New England's offense is going to be good, and we do know that Joe Flacco is reverting back to pick 6 Joe Flacco.
Yeah, there's a different type of Joe Flacco, and we know that Jamar Chase is not going to play because he spit on another man, which was pretty bad. So, Andre Yosefis, you're up in what the heck flex category. Does this bump, obviously T. Higgins, but does it bump maybe Chase Brown? And also, does it bump Noah Fant?
Noah Fant, yeah. Well, I
Noah
mean,
Fant.
he's gotten some red zone targets from Flacco. He's been decent for fantasy, and yeah, he's somebody that could fill some of the gap because I would expect Christian Gonzalez on T. Higgins. That's going to be really fun to watch. And Chase Brown, you have to put in your lineup as long as Samaje Perine is out. But the Patriots, some good stuff out there about how the Patriots can be in a nickel defense, but still be very good against the run thanks to Marcus Jones. So, the gremlin, Jaquan McMillan, having that great game for Denver last week. Marcus Jones also being able to play many roles in that defense and helping them. And Flacco is back at home. Joe Goodberry alerted us. Cincinnati's offense is always better at home. On the road, we'll see. We'll see what they do at home without Jamar Chase. Like you said, Cease. Yoshevich certainly could be an interesting one against the lesser corners if Higgins is matched up against Christian Gonzalez. But I also kind of like the New England defense in this one because I think, again, we're back to that part of the Joe Flacco story where he turns into a pumpkin pie.
What does Jackson Dart turn into out there? Giants in Detroit again Wednesday morning. So we're trying to figure out who's going to play quarterback for the Giants, and that obviously has a trickle-down effect. And can fantasy GMs continue to trust any of your Giants players?
I think so. And whether it's Dart or Winston, what we know is this offense is invigorated now. It doesn't have the Russell Wilson sleepwalking effect anymore.
Oh.
Right, right. Nano bubbles. Hey, certainly Singletary and Tyrone Tracy, Singletary gets the goal line carries, and if the Giants fall behind in this one, he might be out there more often as a receiving back. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, is going to get the targets. Theo Johnson as a tight end is going to get the targets. Maybe even Isaiah Hodgins if Darius Slayton isn't out there. But the variable is how much will the Lions offense be able to do? And the Giants defense is eroding. So that could put a game script out here indoors where the Giants have to really open up the offense, which could be really good. So I think I would be optimistic, again, whether it's Dart or Winston. Now, if it is Dart and you're making a quarterback choice about Dart, we should assume, sometimes we're wrong, that he's not going to run as much. And that's just the rational reaction, including at the goal line. So that's another reason why Singletary could retain value. And the Giants could play spoiler in this one. All the talk about Kansas City not being in the playoffs today, Cease. Detroit's not in the playoffs today.
Hmm. I like the memes of Carolina. I think was it John Daly and Tiger
Yeah,
Woods,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
or the Panthers are John Daly, and they've got a better record than the Chiefs at
Right.
the Tiger Woods. Anyway,
Yes, yes.
Detroit Lions need to get on it, get up on it. How do they do that at home
Yeah.
against the Giants?
Dan Campbell, maybe going to, fourth down, go for it anonymous, where he's like, my name's Dan and I'm going for it on fourth down too many times. Because last week there was a very manageable game if they had been a little more conservative on those fourth down choices. A very manageable game on the road against a tough Eagles defense. This isn't a tough defense. I do think they'll have more success. We can unpack from last week after we watch this game, Cease. Is Dan Campbell, even though his play calling is getting Jamison Williams involved, is this something where he needs to do some self-scouting, or was it just the Vic Fangio and this Eagles defense with the personnel they have? Just don't test them. You have to actually be conservative against the Eagles defense. We'll see, but indoor Jared Goff certainly is a high floor, high ceiling play. Jahmyr Gibbs, maybe it has something to do with Sam Laporta being on IR. He got more chances, had a 100-yard game as a receiver last week. Of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's a weird line for him, like 12 targets, 2 catches, 42 yards. So I wonder if we're going to see a bounce back game for him. And then if the Lions can control this game and have a second half lead, then we like David Montgomery as a flex. An intriguing matchup, and one that is probably a lot more important for playoff implications than the Lions wanted it to be.
Yeah, so you're here. You got to make it happen. We've got 4 games down, 4 games to go in part 1 of the Week 12 preview here on the Audible. It is footballguys.com, and we certainly appreciate you very much. No silly super chats. You want to tip the show, then just go to footballguys.com. Sign up for our free daily newsletter. And if you like that as well, sign up for footballguys.com. That's how you support the Audible 20 years of this thing. And we appreciate you all for subscribing to footballguys.com. Minnesota and Green Bay. Boy, this is perhaps the most interesting game we're going to talk about in this show, Sigmund, because of what Minnesota has to figure out and what the Packers may have figured out. Let's get to it first, though, with Minnesota side. How do you see him attacking Green Bay in week 12?
Jordan Mason, I just think that you can't put J.J. McCarthy out there to fail early on. And we're reaching a really interesting crossroads, Cease, as you were alluding to, that is J.J. McCarthy the long-term plan? These 2 games at Green Bay and next week at Seattle could be very important, like a crucible. Okay, JJ McCarthy, you want to prove that you should be going into next season as the clear starter, then show you can do it on the road against some of the tougher defenses in your division and in your conference. But if those 2 games are poor, you hear Kevin O'Connell saying it's tough weighing what's good for the team and what's good for JJ. There's a larger conversation here, Cease, of is the NFL way of developing quarterback just broken? And, some of the blood's on fans' hands that are always cheering for the rookie. You're always cheering for the backup because how could JJ McCarthy have developed? This is another Anthony Richardson situation all over again. Although he obviously is not doing the things behind the scenes, or not doing. He's still probably doing his part behind the scenes, but it's not resulting in the development in a Kevin O'Connell offense you want. So this is an important game, but I do think from a rational coaching standpoint, Jordan Mason can get this offense on schedule and make JJ situations easier. From a passing standpoint, you're going to play Justin Jefferson, who's frustrated. That's another thing to watch. I mean, these are all those canaries in the coal mine about you had a plan. Too bad they didn't get to trade up for Drake May, because now they may have to go back to the drawing board. Mike Florio even putting out there this morning, maybe they'll trade for Mac Jones in the offseason. Uh, so JJ McCarthy can do something in this game to stop that from happening, but he can also do something in this game to make that more likely. And like you said, sees Jordan Love, he's going the opposite direction. He's getting his confidence back.
Yeah, getting his swag back. And how do you do it? Throw to Christian Watson. Now, we're going to see if Josh Jacobs can play again Wednesday morning. We're not aware of the injury reports yet, so please forgive us. But we're going into this thinking, hey, if Watson is that one, it's kind of the way things need to be.
Yeah, we've seen these two hook up for big plays, big games in the past, and the skying over double coverage for the game-winning touchdown against the Giants. It's just something that galvanizes an offense and a quarterback. And he also threw a beautiful deep ball to Savion Williams last week. There were some plays downfield that Romeo Doubs dropped. It could have been an even better game for Jordan Love, and I think that you now lean into that. Maybe even with Jaden Reed coming back, and we'll see about Romeo Doubs and his chest. They were working on it, and he had some drops that were uncharacteristic for him. But I think Watson's the guy you want to zero in on as a possible play. And then whichever running back, if Josh Jacobs plays, you're going to play him. But if not, Emmanuel Wilson showed that he can be competent, efficient, a very trusted receiver. And the Packers are making their way. See, in some ways, the NFL is resembling fantasy football this year, and there are ups and downs. There are weeks you think your team needs to be torn down. There are weeks you think you're going to run the table, and you just keep getting out there and doing it. And it's so very interesting. JJ McCarthy's first game at Lambeau.
Yes, we'll see how that looks. I've seen the future, Sigmund,
Oh,
and it's fantastic because Sam Darnold doesn't throw 4 picks against the Titans this week. Seahawks, Titans. Let's talk Seattle side.
yeah, and that's my first note under Seattle sees is Darnold just needs to shrug off those interceptions. And Tennessee, they got Arden Key back after the bye. They did, it was Davis Mills, but they had a pretty game defensive performance last week against Houston. Seattle's not Houston, and Kenneth Walker III is not Woody Marks. So we're seeing Mike McDonald saying, yeah, he's earning more opportunities, and he's just seeing what we've been seeing all year, that Walker, between his power, the kinetic energy he creates, speed, the burst, the ability to break long plays, including in the passing game. Oh boy, if we start getting Kenneth Walker in the passing game, Kenneth Walker can be a league winner. The blocking is getting better. The added Rashid Shaheed, you're going to have more light boxes. Still play Zach Charbonnet in this one as a flex play, because he might get garbage time work. He can get goal line work. But Kenneth Walker the third, high ceiling. Sam Darnold, high ceiling. Obviously, Jackson Smith at Jigba. And then with guys like Shaheed and Cup and AJ Barner, who caught 10 passes last week, I just think that it's going to be tough to predict week to week, and that's where having Darnold helps, because whoever it is, and when Torrey Horton hopefully gets healthy, he adds somebody. This should be a game for Seattle. Like I said, get their confidence back in Sam Darnold, have balance in the offense, and again show, even though they didn't win last week, they're still a Super Bowl contender.
They're still right there. Tennessee, not very close. So fantasy GMs skipping the Titans.
Nobody. See the X Files. They said trust no one,
Yes.
play no one. Maybe it really is trust no one.
No, no, it is. It is. Trust no one.
Yeah, so I mean, Cam Ward. You see a lot of smart football people saying Cam Ward's actually playing really well considering the circumstances. And I will say this: that Cam Ward has continued. You're not seeing him get discouraged at all, right? Remember Caleb Williams last year? You're not seeing any scenes of Cam Ward sitting on the sidelines with his head down. Cam Ward just gone there and playing. And even in the interviews, in the press conferences, he even can be a little combative, saying like, hey, do you know how to call out this protection? Call out a protection for me, and things like that. So I'm still heartened that Cam Ward can be a franchise quarterback for this team. Who's the coach going to be? What kind of team they're going to build around him? So we'll see. Otherwise, we'll do some Seattle, play the Seattle defense.
Right.
But Kimray DK left with a chest contusion and a concussion check. Alec Yeomanor had some hamstring issues. I know Gunnar Helm, these fourth rounders, we're going to watch this. nobody to play. So yeah, Tennessee fans. Well, Nashville is still a fun place to live.
Well, and I love that Cam Ward is serious about football, and God bless Anthony Richardson. I mean it. He's incredibly physically talented. But when you're not serious about football, that's what happens. Like the
Yeah,
Anthony Richardson's Jake Locker. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like we've
yeah.
seen this before. How many years have we done
Paxton
this?
Lynch.
We've seen this before where it's like, oh, you've got the physical tools. That's the easy
Yeah.
part.
See, when was the moment that you knew that Paxton Lynch wasn't going to work out for Denver?
Fourth press conference. I asked him if he was gonna like keep track with Carson Wentz and Jared Goff of like, hey, a little competition between you guys. He's like, nah, not really. Oh, okay. Anyway, now playing for the Colorado Spartans,
Hey.
and his son, who I believe is like 6 or 7, is quarterback for his junior team as
Oh
well.
wow.
So there you go.
Cool. Cool.
Now, this one's really cool. Now, I said earlier that our most interesting game, Vikings Packers, because of the questions. Obviously, big questions about Kansas City. Not many questions about the Colts. Going into Kansas City, a desperate team backed into a corner, an animal backed in the corner. They were that last week,
Right.
and you felt it. What are they this week? And can the Colts deal the knockout blow for a guy in Pat Mahomes who's never not played in an AFC championship? Did I get that right?
Yeah. Yeah. These stories are so fantastic. What an amazing collision of stories we have in this game. A true showdown. And the Colts should be fashioning themselves as the number 1 seed in the AFC. The Colts should be fashioning themselves as a team that says the road to the Super Bowl goes through Lucas Oil. Is that what's it called now? So Daniel Jones against Kansas City on the road. You're still going to probably play him. I mean, there's some tough choices. I can imagine Daniel Jones, because he was drafted later. You might say Daniel Jones or Baker Mayfield or Daniel Jones or Matthew Stafford. I mean, I might not pick him in all of these ors, but still you expect coming out of the bye 2 weeks to prepare for this game, a big game. Jonathan Taylor's rested. And remember, a lot of games, Jonathan Taylor only had 15, 16 carries. So you look out. I mean, Jonathan Taylor's ready. Tyler Warren's going to lead the passing game, or at least he's the best fantasy play in the passing game. But what did we see last week from Bo Nix? We saw him make Cortland Sutton, Pat Bryant, and Troy Franklin all decent fantasy plays. So we should expect the same if you're looking at Michael Pittman. Probably even though he went into the bye on a low note, put him in Alec Pierce and maybe even Josh Downs, because there's enough, again, with a strong tight end in the passing game, maybe not all three, but we saw last week, Kansas City, even though Denver wasn't amazingly successful on offense, they made 3 wide receivers fantasy relevant. So that's hopeful. And you also have an Indianapolis team that not just can prove themselves, but like you said, Cease, I mean, if you're Indianapolis and you're the number 1 seed in the AFC and you can make it so there's a much greater chance you will not have to see Patrick Mahomes coming into your building, you sweep the leg. You do that now.
Yeah, you take care of business, and then if you're Pat Mahomes, again, Wednesday morning, we don't know about Isaiah Pacheco. Andy Reid came out of the bye was almost flawless. And last week, Spagnuolo didn't change his defense, didn't adjust to what the Broncos were doing. The Broncos pretty much knew. Watching one of the plays to Roshe Rice for Talanoa Hufunga's calling it out like Troy
Isn't he
Polamalu,
great,
his
by the way? What
mentor.
a pickup, Hufanga.
I've talked to Huff about Polamalu. I mean, he's essentially the new Polamalu. Not as good, but he trained obviously USC. He trained with Troy. Like he
Yeah.
takes that mindset. He says a prayer before the plays,
Yeah.
and he's pointing out plays like
Yeah.
Andy Reid, Pat Mahomes. Still incredible talent, off the charts. But man, that was your plan. You better
Yeah.
have a better plan this week.
What happens? See, I can remember when you and I used to argue. I'd say the Chiefs are a dynasty. You'd say, but they've only won one, And then I'd say, well, now are they a dynasty? Well, they're a dynasty now. But what
Oh yeah.
happens with dynasties? They get complacent. And we thought, oh, the offense is back, Patrick Mahomes back. Maybe Patrick Mahomes is the one player who's not complacent. People talk about Chris Jones. Remember, Chris Jones was a game wrecker back in the day. And some of these players for the Chiefs that are the signature players, well, Travis Kelce, for fantasy, let's take note of that. Travis Kelce. So it's Mahomes and Kelce. Those are the two guys that look like they have the urgency of a team that didn't just win all these Super Bowls. The urgency of, come on, guys, like we have to make this happen. Roshy Rice, you're going to keep in, but we thought, oh, he's going to be an easy wide receiver one. Now, like you said, Cease, if they're not changing it up, he's not really that dangerous of a receiver. Xavier Worthy, where is the beef? Where I'm just going to keep doing that. I mean, where's the impact? Where's him making games turn out differently with his speed? It's actually Tyquan Thornton who should be getting those targets. So, keep that on your radar if there's a switch, because Tyquan Thornton's the one who actually has been getting open deep and really in those deep balls. Patrick Mahomes is in a 2-game slump. And Patrick Mahomes, you're going to play him against Indy, but if he has a 3-game slump after this one, you're really going to start wondering, what do we have in Mahomes? What do we have in this offense? Do we have a Chiefs team that's going to stay home for the playoffs?
Yes, and our final game, we're going to talk about Jets in Baltimore. Jets with Tyrod Taylor starting. I guess it's a little bit more interesting.
Against one of his old teams. I mean, I don't know. Brees
Mm.
Hall, you hope that there's a lot of dump offs. You hope that Tyrod Taylor just checks down to him a lot.
Mason Taylor.
I mean, maybe Mason Taylor. Yeah, but Baltimore's defense has been better since Lamar Jackson's been back. They had a pretty good game against Cleveland last week, but that was against Cleveland. Well, this isn't that much better of an offense. And what you really hope is that Baltimore, if you're a Baltimore fan, is that after a couple of tough games, that they look like a playoff team and they dominate a team that they're supposed to, just like they did against Miami.
Ravens side is, well, same as it ever was, right?
Yeah, and the good thing here, if you have Derrick Henry, is he had a 59-yard run last week, the longest of the season. So you love that when your 30-plus-year-old running back gets his longest run in Week 11. And you also have Denzel Ward chased him down. Mark Andrews with a 36-yard run of his own on the fake tush push. So you're feeling good about him. You're feeling good about Zay Flowers in this one. Remember, the Jets traded away Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams, who made some plays for Dallas. And maybe even DeAndre Hopkins, assuming that Rashad Bateman is going to be out. Remember, with Hopkins, you might have 5 targets, 3 or 4 catches, 70, 80 yards, a touchdown or 2. That's the kind of connection that he has with Lamar Jackson. Remember, they played in the wind last week also. So for Baltimore, you want this to be a game that makes, on offense and defense, some confidence as they go down the stretch and get into some of their tougher matchups.
Yeah, and we will be there watching to see what happens with great interest. It is
Yeah.
the Audible. 20 years, Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund Bloom. We are the Audible. Follow Sig on the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammey. Show is at the Audible, saying thanks, everybody. Stay tuned, and would you please, as always, stay frosty.